This is the Nintendo Switch, a video game console that defies conventional console design, because it is both a traditional console and a handheld device. What makes the design so unique is the versatility in controller options. Gamers can disconnect the controllers from the screen using them independently, in different orientations, or together. The result of such an innovative and mindful design is that it's fun to play in both docked mode, handheld mode, and in all of the different orientations you can use the controllers. But what if we took the spirit of the Switch's design and applied it to furniture, specifically a living room media console? It would be magical, that's what. Unless we mess it up, and then it would be tragic. The media console is a typical rectangle cut into 3 smaller rectangles. The heart of functionality is in this wall cleat. One piece of wood cut to 45 degrees, giving us a stationary piece on the wall to receive the second piece mounted to the console. So 2 perfectly matched 45s joining together to bear the weight of a new baby media console. True love. Wow. The center is to be permanently mounted on the cleat along with the 2 floating shelves that are made to hold the weight of the outer 2 cabinets, or joy cabs. Yeah. Pull the joy cabs off and you have a side table. Pull both joy cabs off, flip them around, and you've got yourself a coffee table. Modular media console. Trademark. First up, I need to make the cuts for the main box. So I'm going to break down this big piece of plywood using a track saw and a straight edge. Pro tip, if you're going to use a straight edge, make sure that it's actually straight. This piece actually used to be straight, but it would appear that it's prone to bending if you store it vertically. The more you know. According to math, making 3 separate rectangles requires 12 pieces of wood. So that's a lot of cuts to be making on the floor. I'm not a floor dweller, and I don't want to do this. So next time, I would make my big rough cuts on the ground and make the rest on the table saw to save my back, my pride, and to make more precise cuts. Because despite what you may think, these are not precise cuts. Not really. Now that I went on that tangent about precise cuts and not being able to make them on the floor, we need to make a precise 45-degree cut to make our cleat, which is the heart of our design. Set the track saw to 45 degrees, lock it in, lean it against the guide, and make the cut. Now that all the pieces are cut, we're going to prep for assembly using the Craig jig. Set your jig to accommodate 3/4 inch material and pre-drill 3 holes on each of the left and right sides. Park your drill bit in the drill bit parking spot. Insert the pocket screw bit. Set your drill to about 12 or 13 so we don't drive it through the material, and we're ready to join. I'm securing the wood to my workbench with a screw, applying glue, and now I'm ready to join the 2 pieces. Using 1 1/4 inch pocket screws, we're going to join the left and the right sides to the tops and the bottoms. We're going to do this for each of the 3 rectangular boxes. Once the first 3 boards are joined, we're going to flip it around and join the 4th. Using the Craig right angle clamp helps the piece from sliding after applying the glue. It's been said that you don't need to use glue with pocket screws, but because kids are going to be sitting on these as benches, I thought it might be a good idea to have that extra stability. After joining the first piece, it's very clear that this is not square, and that's going to be a big problem when I go to join the 3 rectangles together on the wall. So I need to disassemble this and get it square. This is one of the major problems with cutting on the floor. So what I'm actually going to do is take 1/8 of an inch off on each side to try and square this thing up, and then reassemble it like you see me doing here. That looks much better, and now we've got 3 square rectangular boxes ready for the next steps. I filled in the holes with wood filler, sand them down, and then applied 3 coats of white paint. Next up, I've got to cut the back piece for the main rectangle. On the floor. It's just a little bit too big, so I'm going to take a little bit off, and that looks good. That gap. Next up, I'm going to cut and install the center shelf. This will be supported by 2 1-inch pieces attached to the side of the cabinet using glue and brad nails. I need to mark out 3/4 of an inch clearance on the back end so that the back piece fits in. After making my marks, I use a clamp to hold the 1-inch piece in place, and then use the brad nails and glue to secure it into place. Forever. And then slide in the middle shelf. And then put in the back board. Now that we know the shelf fits, we're going to attach it with wood glue so that it will never escape again. I'm applying the gray paint to the backer board, and then I'm going to permanently affix this to the cabinet with, you guessed it, pocket screws. I'm making sure that the gap is on the top. I was considering filling it in with a thin strip of wood, but when it gets hung on the wall, you actually can't see that there's a gap there unless you're a small child or a small person or dog or a floor dweller like me. Now onto the joy cabs. I need to make 2 support pieces for each joy cab so that the floating shelf can rest on it. And this is the mechanism to slide the joy cabs off of the wall cleat and put them down into modular mode. I just made that up. Modular mode. Now I'm fabricating the floating shelves, and these are going to be permanently screwed to the main wall cleat. And like I said, this is the main mechanism for detaching the joy cabs. These trim pieces are going to give the floating shelves a nice finished look. The big design decision was whether I permanently attach them to the floating shelves or permanently attach them inside the joy cabs. And this is a problem that sort of plays out as I test fit the cabinet on the wall. And let's not forget about the center trim. It's in the center. I'm scribing a line across the back of the shelf to see where I need to join these 2 pieces. And then joining them with pocket screws. It's simple, what do you want from me? This is my living room. A cluster of cords gated off for the safety of my little one. And what's behind it? But a special edition Wind Waker HD Wii U. A gem. Yes, it should have been called Wii 2, but they blew it, and I cherish it anyway. Underrated. I'm locating the wall studs and then transferring the mark to the wall portion of the cleat. I'm going to take this into my garage and use a Forstner bit to route out a hole big enough to fit my ratchet bit so it won't hit the wood. And then I'm going to take a drill bit a little bit smaller than my bolt size and pre-drill through this cleat. I'm leveling up the wall cleat. You should always use level. You know why. Pre-drilling with a slightly smaller drill bit than our bolt. Removing the drill bit, inserting a ratchet bit, setting the drill to low, inserting the bolt through the washer, and then driving the bolt into the stud. Check for level. Level! And repeat this process on the next stud location. Not you, though you are a stud. Reload your battery because it died. Try to use your other battery, but that's also dead. So now we're stuck using a ratchet. Great. So now the time has finally come to connect the other cleat to the center cabinet. It's laterally level, which is great, but you can see that it's sagging back towards the wall. So I need to put a spacer piece back there to make sure that it's lined up square from the wall. I'm using scrap 2x4s to prop up my joy cab, and now I'm going to lay out where the floating shelf is going to be permanently attached to the cleat. It's critical that this is perfect so that I can slide it off and on easily. It's not too tight, not too loose, never too loose, and inappropriate. I originally had the trim pieces attached to the floating shelves, but they wouldn't allow the joy cab to come free. So I'm attaching them permanently to the joy cabs instead. Slides off like butter, the butteriest butter. Because the cabinet doors are going to be on the outside of the joy cabs, I need to put trim to match the thickness of the cabinet doors, which is 3/4 of an inch. A late addition is a hole for a cord grommet so that I can feed the power in the HDMI cord to the Nintendo Switch without it being seen. The problem is I can't fit my drill inside the main cabinet, it's too big. So I can only drill from one side. I tried to do the right thing here. Some days I feel like wood filler was created just for me. To install the door hinges, we're going to need a drill, the Craig concealed hinge jig, a Phillips head drill bit, a 1/16 of an inch drill bit, and 2 clamps. I set my jig to the 5 setting, which is 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Clamp the jig to your cabinet door and then drill with the supplied Forstner bit. Then you're going to pop this piece off so that you can use your 1/16 of an inch drill bit to drill the pilot holes for your screws to attach the hinges. Money. Each hinge kit comes with a layout diagram that you cut and tape to the interior of the cabinet to lay out the other side of the hinge. You're going to lay it out 3.5 inches from the top and bottom of the cabinet, and then pre-drill through the drawing. Super simple, it just works. Just like our love. Snap the hinges into place and then watch it close, like magic. And if it doesn't close, you can adjust it laterally with a screwdriver. And so, after long last, our modular media console, trademark, is ready for takeoff in 3, 2,
but every day would seem turning into love song. Press me to your I would